이 새끼들은 게임을 만들려는 게 아니야. 그냥 맵을 잘 만들고 싶은 거지. 맵과 디자인과 그리고 하... 자, 이번엔 이집트 한번 보죠. 이집트. 이건 이집트 각 지역의 특징들을 보여주는 것 같습니다. 이번에는 캐릭터를 바꿔보죠. 이번엔 클레오파트라로 해보죠. 자, 이집트입니다. 이집트의 주요 지역. 아, 이번 배 타고 가는 거야?
Welcome to the major regions of Egypt.
쩌네요 정말.
Life in ancient Egypt was concentrated along the shores of the Nile
저
and
위쪽이
divided into
하이집트고요.
two regions.
저 아래쪽이
Lower
상이집트입니다.
Egypt was situated on the Nile Delta near the Mediterranean, and Upper Egypt was at the south reaching into
왜냐면 이게
Africa.
남북으로 상하를
Due
구별하는
to
게
its
아니고요.
proximity to the Mediterranean,
나일강의 상류에 있냐
temperatures
아니면
in
하류에
Lower
있냐로
Egypt were
구분하거든요.
less extreme than in Upper Egypt.
많이 헷갈려 하시는데. 자, 배모는 여왕님.
Until 3100 BCE and the unification of Egypt, each region had its own pharaoh and crown. Lower Egypt's crown was red and marked with
저게
symbols of
각각이
papyrus and
하이집트,
beads.
상이집트라고 서로서로 부른 거예요?
Upper Egypt's crown
아니면은
was white,
나중
with
사람들이
symbols of
그냥
lotus
편의상
and sedge-grass.
하이집트, 상이집트라고 얘기한 거예요? 서로 다른 나라라고. 나라 이름도
Both
사실은
regions
원래는
had
이집트가
competing
아니었던
major
거지.
cities, most notably Memphis in Lower Egypt and Thebes in Upper Egypt. There were different religious cults in both regions, each worshipping their own major gods.
여기는 멤피스네요.
Many of the temples were designed in such a way
아까 나왔던
as to
거다.
represent the two regions, and ceremonies often incorporated Upper and Lower Egypt in their rituals.
자, 이집트의 주요 지역. 이번에는 생명의 근원 나일강입니다. 나일강. 이 게임의 클레오파트라는 나디아 같다. 그 신비한 바다의 나디아, 그 싸가지 없는 채식주의자.
Welcome to Bringer of Life, the River Nile. The ancient Egyptians called the dark fertile soil of the Nile the Black Lands, and the surrounding desert was referred to as the Red Lands. The dramatic difference of productive land opposed to barren desert had a deep influence on cultural ideology, mythology, and religion.
강을 경계로 양쪽이 어떻게 저렇게 극단적으로 다를까?
The Nile determined much of Egyptian civilization. For example, the seasonal cycle of the Nile was so consistent that ancient Egyptians created their calendar around it. The flood season, or Akhet, was when the departing floodwaters left arable soil for crops. It was followed by the growing and harvesting seasons, known as Peret and Shemu. These regular seasons, along with abundant wildlife and rich soil, meant that Egypt's denizens were able to nourish themselves and ensure their country's strength in trade.
예, 그렇게는 안 돼요.
The River Nile, flowing from the south to the north, neatly traversed through both Upper and Lower Egypt. All of Egypt's major cities were built along this narrow ribbon of life. Protected by mountain ranges and deserts which acted as natural barriers to enemies, and sustained by the Nile's plants and wildlife, Egyptian civilization enjoyed economic and cultural prosperity for over 4,000 years.
그리스 놈들이 원래 개판이잖아.
Both ancient Egyptians and ancient Greeks referred to the Nile as the river in their respective languages. Stretching a distance of over 6,700 kilometers, the Nile is one of the longest rivers in the world. It flows south to north, spanning 11 countries. The River Nile originates in the region of the Great Subequatorial Lakes, including one of the largest in the world, Lake Victoria near Tanzania.
진짜 관광이네 이건. 비켜 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 비켜. 이벤 좀 머네.
The river flows through African equatorial forests, swamps, volcanic lands, steppes, and deserts, splitting apart for a while and picking up various sediments from each region and carrying them all the way to Egypt. Its main artery, known as the White Nile, rejoins with the Blue Nile in Khartoum. This is where it weaves through rich deposits of silt and nutrients, carrying them along in its wake.
네, 갔다 와요. 네.
The Nile crosses 6 cataracts from the south to the north, creating natural obstacles between the various sections of the river. The cataracts are long zones of about 100 kilometers, where the bubbling and rapidly swirling waters advance tumultuously, amid enormous heaps of rocks and benches of hard stone.
저기는 누비아니까 엄청 남쪽이네요. 지금의 수단 북부 지역입니다.
It is after crossing Nubia and the First Cataract that the river officially returns to Egypt in Aswan. There are still 1,000 kilometers before it reaches Cairo and the Delta, bringing life to those living on its shores before it eventually empties into the Mediterranean Sea.
이번 거는 구간이 좀 많이 길다. 역시 맵 자랑하려고 혈안이 된 놈들 잡습니다.
Ancient Egyptian irrigation and water use was centered around the Nile. However, they also had access to streams and rivers, as well as several large lakes. The Delta, situated at the north end of the Nile, also known as Lower Egypt, is a large irrigated area where the river splits into several tributaries.
여기가 끝이네요.
The Delta had several major brackish coastal lakes, bodies of water separated from the sea by thin strips of land. A mix of deep to shallow waters, salt swamps, and sand plains, these lakes were refuge to a wealth of species, as well as water and land plants. The occasional bandit could also be found sheltering within the denser reeds, waiting for the unwary traveler.
자, 나일강이었습니다. 이번엔 이집트의 사막. 이집트 영토의 94%를 차지하는 사막.
Welcome to Deserts of Egypt. Whoa. Reaching out on either side of the lush Nile are the harsh arid
이걸
western
제외되는 거야?
desert and the mountainous eastern desert. They cover nearly 94% of Egypt. Each of these parent deserts have their own microclimate and contain several smaller deserts with a distinctive fauna and flora. Whale fossils were discovered within the depths of the Sahara. Known as the Valley of the Whales, this location is evidence of the seas which once covered the area.
반대로 말하면 바다 밑바닥이 이렇게 생겼다는 말도 되겠죠.
Whoa! The White Desert in the northeast of the Sahara owes its name to its white limestone soil, contrasting with the yellow sand. The wind has eroded the rocks of the White Desert
저기
into
석회암이었구나.
stone mushrooms, the most famous of which is referred to as the finger of God.
손가락. 저거 참
Whoa!
여성부에서 좋아하게 생겼을 것 같네요. 생긴 것 같습니다. 생긴 게.
The Great Sand Sea is a large unbroken desert that reaches out through western Egypt and eastern Libya. It is home to a unique geological formation known as Libyan silica glass. The pale yellowish-green material ranges from pebble-sized fragments to glass rocks the size of rough boulders.
자, 이집트의 사막입니다. 이번엔 카타라 분지. 맵 중간쯤에 있었죠.
Welcome to the Qatar. The Qattara Depression is located in the northwest part of Egypt. Reaching 18,000 square kilometers, the basin is 133 meters below sea level and covered with salt. It is the second lowest point in Africa, after the Afar Depression. The climate is very arid, with average temperatures reaching 36 degrees Celsius.
존나 덥겠다.
The famous Siwa Oasis is
건조하니까 좀 덜
located on the
더울까요?
protected southwestern region. Today, the Qattara Depression is utilized for oil exploration.
평균 기온이 40도라는 거는 36도라는 거는 36도보다 높을 때도 많다는 거잖아요, 그죠? 여기가 어디냐면은 요 지역입니다. 요 지역이 카타라 분지고요. 그리고 여기가 주인공 고향인 시와 지역이죠. 제벤 시와입니다. 시와. 보이지만 안녕하세요. 어제 좀 오래 했지.
Welcome to Siwa. The Siwa Oasis is in the western desert of Egypt. Geographically, the Siwan Oasis is located in a depression 20 meters below sea level. Its natural springs and warm climate aided in the bountiful production of date trees. Though clearly influenced to some degree by Egyptian and African culture, the area's isolation resulted in a unique society and language. While they worshipped the same deities, Siwan temple architecture differed from traditional Egyptian temples.
이집트 본토가요. 시와가 요 지역이고요. 여기 서쪽이 어디냐면 이제 리비아겠죠 아마. 아니 북쪽이 리비아인가? 뭐 아무튼 모르겠다. 이 북쪽이 이제 키레네이카고. 이집트 본토는 여기입니다. 여기가 알렉산드리아고 그다음에 여기 남쪽이 이제 멤피스고 그렇죠. 그러니까 사실 한참 멀리 떨어진 곳인 겁니다. 그러니까 이집트 본토하고는 좀 차이가 있겠죠, 당연히.
Old Kingdom Egyptians referred to the oasis as cauldron due to its unique geographical structure. Oases were crucial for nomadic tribes and caravans. Without them, there was no chance of survival in an otherwise harsh landscape. As such, oases quickly became hubs for trade, as well as areas of political control. Because of the dry climate, there is very little rainfall to sustain the oases. Instead, underground rivers flood the natural basins. Since many oases have a north-south orientation, parallel to the Nile, some geologists suggest they were once tributaries of the mighty river. There is evidence that ancient Egyptians attempted to create some oases.
오아시스를 만들려 그랬다.
The Libyan oases are the best known, as they are geographically and culturally linked to the Nile Valley and the Delta. These western oases have a distinct geology from the other regions of Egypt. The most famous and important oases are Karga, Dakhla, Farafra, Baharia, and Siwa. The Spring of the Sun is one of many thermal sources in Siwa, with the
요게
particularity that Cleopatra would have bathed in this one, giving it its name. The presence of the source beneath was attested
진짜 있는
already by
곳이군요.
Herodotus during the 5th
동그랗네.
century BCE, when the
파피루스
oasis was
수수께끼
called
중에 하나죠.
Almuneon by the Greeks of Cyrene.
여기 지하로 내려가면 네, 땅 밑에 어딘가에 여기 그 파피루스 수수께끼에 그게 있었죠. 답이 있었죠. 네, 지금은 없네.
Oracles predicted the future, delivered omens that could be more or less obscure, and offered divine guidance. The Siwan Oracle was considered one of the three greatest of the ancient world, alongside the oracles of Delphi and Dodoni. Because of the Greek colonies in Cyrenaica, the temple associated Zeus with the worship of Ammon. It is no wonder that Alexander the Great made the perilous journey to Siwa in order to consult the oracle, emulating the actions of
시와가
mythical
유명했나 보네.
heroes such as Hercules and Perseus. This action earned the approval of the oracle, who validated his claim as pharaoh of Egypt. He was confirmed as the son of Ammon, conferring upon him the most legitimate claim to date of all Egypt's foreign invaders.
Whoa.
The powerful and the rich would send gifts or travel great distances in order to ensure their good fortune by gaining the blessing of the Oracle of Siwa. Every successful blessing only increased the soothsayer's prestige. Runner Eubotus, a famous citizen of Cyrene, consulted the oracle in order to know if he would win the 93rd Olympic Games race in 408 BCE. He did, enhancing the standing of the Siwan oracle in the process.
Whoa!
The Temple of the Oracle of Amun was built in the 6th century BCE by Pharaoh Amasis. In the game, its entrance is guarded by ram-headed sphinxes, the animal representing Amun. They were inspired by similar statuary located at the British Museum.
대형 박물관.
Another option would have a Greek-influenced representation of Zeus Amun, a human-headed sphinx with horns. This representation of Zeus Amun was very popular in Siwa.
자, 시와였습니다. 시와.
Whoa!
여기는 파이오무와 시스요.
Whoa!
Welcome to the Fayum. The Fayum Oasis is an enormous basin in the western desert that formed from the Nile's overflow. As such, it is not considered a true oasis, though it gives its name to the region, which covers Lake Moeris. The oasis harbors some of the oldest archaeological artifacts of the region, indicating that the area has been inhabited by hunters and gatherers since the Neolithic period. The Fayum Oasis drains into Lake Moeris, which was a large freshwater lake, but at some time became a saltwater lake. In the 12th dynasty, ancient Egyptians redirected the water flow with a dam and dug a supply canal using the lake as their reservoir. Irrigation enabled them to continue growing crops of figs, grapes, and olives year-round. Reed boats, feluccas, triremes, and kerkeros were the most commonly found craft within the landlocked waters of Egypt. They were used for various purposes,
이 뭐야? 액트 3야?
ranging from daily fishing, trade, warfare, and travel, to the ferrying of massive stone blocks used to build the great monuments of Egypt.
1세기 그림이라네요. 1세기 그림. 파이움 지역이 요 지역입니다. 요 지역. 요 지역을 파이움이라 그러죠. 이외에도 되게 머네.
The most impressive pyramids of ancient Egypt date from the Old Kingdom and can be found on the sites of Giza, Saqqara, and Dashur. However, one particularly famous pyramid of the time is located elsewhere. During the Middle Kingdom, some pharaohs chose the Fayum as their final resting place. One such ruler was Amenemhat III. His pyramid left a mark on the imagination of antique chroniclers. They refer to it as the Labyrinth, mostly due to the vast mortuary temple complex at the foot of the pyramid. Herodotus mentioned that he had visited 12 courts and over 3,000 of its chambers. But he was also well known for being prone to hyperbole.
저게 아메네메트 2세인가요? 3세인가? 그 피라미드죠. 게임상에도 들리게 됩니다.
Amenemhat's pyramid was built with a brick core and covered with stone slabs, designed to be impenetrable. The burial chamber, made out of a single block of sandstone, is unique in its design. Richard Lepsius and Flinders Petrie both explored the pyramid site, measuring 385 meters by 158 meters, and identified it as the location of the labyrinth. Their research conditions were difficult, as most of the site had been submerged by the nearby canal. Furthermore, the stones from the complex and the outer casing of the pyramid had been quarried away long ago. Ubisoft decided to give life back to this lost monument and the many crypts that were said to be devoted to the sacred crocodile god, Sobek.
원래 이게 부스터 쓰면 좀 더 빨리 갈 수 있는데 일반 게임보다 속도가 좀 느린 것 같네요. 자, 요 안쪽으로 들어왔죠, 그죠?
Founded during the 5th dynasty, the site was popular during the 12th dynasty under the name of Shedet. During the Ptolemaic era, the metropolis was named Crocodilopolis by the Greeks, in honor of the crocodile god Sobek.
크로코딜로폴리스라는 말은 헬라인들이
the
바꾼 말이군요.
clerics, soldiers of the Ptolemies, settled there after their military service and expanded the irrigation systems. Irrigation and water distribution tripled the arable land and turned the city into a lush and rich area. 27,000 inhabitants lived in its precinct at its height. The city's location was strategic in controlling the many small waterways connecting to the main canal, and thus the Nile.
어우, 배 엄청 답답했는데.
The region's main cult was that of Sobek of Shedet, a divinity associated with water and fertility, both very important to an area that depended on irrigation. Many local villages had the title Town of Sobek added to their official designations. During festivals, ancient Egyptians recited hymns to Sobek, asking for his divine intervention. Greek settlers and later Romans would help the Temple of Sobek's economy to flourish by adopting the local embalming mortuary rites. Their sarcophagi were beautifully painted and adorned with amazingly realistic portraits.
Whoa.
Very similar to the cult of the Apis bull in Memphis, a living crocodile was worshipped within the precinct of Crocodilopolis's main temple. Known as Sobek to the
게임
Egyptians
중에
and
여기
Sukos to the
사는
Greeks,
악어를
it
구해주는
was
도와주는
reported by
그런
Strabo
개수도
that
있죠.
priests fed it with meat, wine, and honeyed milk. They covered its body with jewels and gold. After its death, it was embalmed and placed within the crocodile's grotto, alongside thousands of other mummified crocodiles.
자, 파이움입니다. 이게 멤피스. 이건 뭐지?
Welcome to the city of Memphis. Throughout all ancient Egyptian periods, cities had one thing in common. They were situated along the Nile's shores. Cities were often designated for government or
오른쪽이
for worship.
지중해죠.
Major cities had several temples dedicated to numerous gods and goddesses. Egyptians referred to the organization of their cities as a sepat, or later on by the Persian term nome. There were 20 sepat in Lower Egypt and 22 in Upper Egypt. The capital city of ancient Egypt changed many times over the periods.
Whoa.
One of the largest was Memphis, located in Lower Egypt. It was a key
아, 이게
center for
19세기랍니다.
religious temples,
19세기 찍은
including their most
사진이래요.
important deity, Ptah, god of creation. Thebes, located in Upper Egypt, competed with Memphis and featured as both a political and a religious center. Two important temples, Luxor and Karnak, were built there. A minor capital of the Sayyid dynasty was the city of Sais. This was the last native Egyptian capital of Egypt.
Whoa.
During the Third Dynasty, under Pharaoh Djoser, Memphis
아까
became the
나왔던 그
first
조세르죠.
religious and administrative
피라미드 맨
capital
처음
of Egypt.
지었다는 그 조세를.
Even when the political capital of Egypt decentralized itself, pharaohs were crowned in this sacred city in order to legitimize their ascension to the throne, up to and including Alexander the Great. Though little remains today save ruins south of Cairo, we can guess at the structure of the city, which stretched up to 5 kilometers in length and 2 kilometers in width.
알렉산드로스도 멤피스에서 즉위했군요. 당연히 뭐 알렉산드리아를 나중에 연설했으니까 그렇겠죠.
Whoa.
Memphis was also referred to as the city with 100 doors, or the White Walls. These names were in reference to the wall which surrounded the city. Under the protection of Ptah, god of craftsmen, the city was a thriving religious and economic hub.
Whoa.
좋은 일상생활이다. 자, 멤피스였습니다. 멤피스.
Welcome to Rediscovering Egypt. In the 19th century, the increased intensity of tourism and excavations, as well as the outflow of antiquities to other countries,
대영 제국
threatened
십새끼들
Egypt's archaeological heritage.
영국.
Egyptians took part in this destruction by ransacking sites for artifacts to sell, quarrying stones from ancient monuments, and removing sebak, ancient mud bricks, to reuse for their own purposes.
이마 뭐 하고 있노? 왜 폼 잡고 있음?
A major step in conserving Egypt's heritage was taken in 1858, when the Viceroy of Egypt created the Antiquities Service. Supported by a team of foreign scholars, Auguste Mariette exerted an iron grip on the service. He carried out his work across Egypt and into Nubia, intervening on almost every major site. Aware of the necessity of keeping unearthed artifacts in Egypt, Mariette requested a museum be created for that purpose in 1858. This museum was the ancestor of the Egyptian Museum.
Whoa.
Gaston Maspero, Mariette's successor, expanded and reorganized the Antiquities Service and instigated laws regulating the export of artifacts. French scholars ran the service until it passed into Egyptian hands in the 1950s. As of the mid-19th century, Egyptology was fast becoming a recognized discipline within both private institutions and learned societies.
Whoa.
A French architect, archaeologist, and former researcher, Jean-Claude Golvin, now specializes in the artistic reconstruction of
많네요.
ancient cities and monuments. To date, he has created more than 800 drawings, which include 3 volumes focusing on the reconstitution of ancient Egypt. His work is exquisitely detailed and can be found in books and museums around the world.
여기 나오는 그러니까 여기 나왔던 그림들도 저런 그림이 많았었었는데 저 아저씨 그림인가 보다. 이것도
The team
그렇고.
was thrilled to collaborate with Jean-Claude Golvin in order to recreate Egypt for the game. In the 19 exclusive watercolors he created for the team, Golvin used
그래, 맞네.
scientific
장클로드
data as the
골뱅이네요.
base, and then extrapolated to provide a full interpretation of various locations and monuments in ancient Egypt. Both early sketches and fully rendered images were then used by the team as references while building the world of Assassin's Creed Origins.
자, 맵 자랑이네.
Whoa. Whoa.
Although ancient Egypt's rich religious culture and its mortuary monuments continue to be investigated, the modern discipline of Egyptology has shifted focus. Rather than single-mindedly retrieving impressive artifacts, Egyptologists today focus instead on increasing the body of knowledge. In the past, excavations took place in the field, and while that is still the case today, much of the work on Egyptology now takes place in libraries and archives. Today, archaeology in Egypt relies on an interdisciplinary approach, where traditional Egyptologists are helped by a wide spectrum of scientists from other disciplines and new non-invasive techniques. GPS data, satellite imaging, and ground-penetrating radar allow archaeologists to gain a sense of what lies underneath the ground before excavating.
자, 이집트의 재발견입니다. 이집트에 대한 고고학적 발굴 성과들의 시작, 발굴의 시작 관련한 내용이었습니다. 웬 다 드론이에요?
Welcome to natron. Natron is a colorless salt that was used by ancient Egyptians for
소금이네요,
food
소금.
preservation, cleansing products, and glass making. It was also used in the mummification process. During the ceremonial embalmment ritual, the priests packed the body in natron in order to remove all of the moisture. Once the body was thoroughly desiccated, they could begin the wrapping.
Whoa.
Natron was mined in Wadi Natron. The main mining methods involved either cutting slices out of the lake bed when it was dry, or raking through mineral-saturated water to gather the mineral salts during the floods.
Whoa.
Both techniques are still used today and inspired the team in their recreation of the mines located in the mountains northwest of Memphis.
요 지역이 퀘스트 중에서 퀘스트 하는 중에 오게 되는 곳인데 새로 만든 곳이군요. 그러니까 자, 동물 양파 친구들하고 초코 친구들이 나오겠네.
Welcome to Fauna of Ancient Egypt.
Whoa.
Both domesticated and wild animals were features in ancient Egyptian bas-reliefs as early as the First Dynasty. While the variety of wildlife served as a reliable food source, it also influenced both culture and mythology.
Whoa.
Egypt's terrain allowed for a diverse range of animals, including panthers, rhinoceroses, elephants, and many variations of antelopes.
Whoa.
The Nile was home to many species of fish, along with hippopotami and crocodiles.
Whoa.
The wide variety of birds that populated the riverbanks, from raptors and waterfowl to songbirds, were all cataloged within Egyptian hieroglyphic signs.
토트네요, 토트.
Encounters with reptiles and
교환시네.
insects, such as cobras, scorpions, and scarabs, influenced hieroglyphs and art.
Whoa.
While all animals had sacred meanings, lions in particular represented power and royalty to ancient Egyptians.
저 마저 웃는 것 좀 봐.
They were so prized by pharaohs that they were hunted to extinction within Egypt.
양파의 당숙 아재네요. 자, 이집트의 식물.
Whoa.
Welcome to Flora of... The climate and unique geography of the Nile Delta offered a wide variety of plant species. Many of these plants served as sustenance for ancient Egyptians and as crops for trade. The Nile's consistent seasons allowed Egypt to sustain itself for centuries. Possibly the most useful of the plants was the papyrus. This tall sedge plant grew in abundance along the water's edge of the Nile.
저게 파피루스인가 보네요.
Commonly known for its use as paper, the ancient Egyptians found many other functions
난
for it,
종이 이름이 파피루스인 줄
including rope,
알았는데
sandals,
그게
and
아니라
mats.
식물 이름이 파피루스였구나.
Papyriform boats made from the plant are seen in paintings and reliefs, and were used in ritualistic ceremonies. There were many types of trees along the River Nile, such as the date palm, carob, and tamarisk. The earliest fruit tree cultivated was the fig tree, followed by apple, pomegranate, and eventually olive trees during the era of the New Kingdom. Mango cultivation was the result of a late import from Asia during the Middle Ages. Some trees were associated with gods, such as the acacia with Horus. The divinities Thoth and Seshat were depicted inscribing the reign of the king into a Persea tree. The sycamore was connected with the goddess Iset, patron of the ritual of life.
자, 이집트의 식물이었습니다. 식물. 아유 씨, 엄청 많네. 이번엔 상형 문자입니다. 상형 문자. 잠깐만요. 일상생활 이렇게 많나? 일상생활도 엄청 많군요. 자, 이번엔 상형 문자입니다.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphics were used as sacred writing, appearing on monuments, statues, and sacred
안녕하세요.
papyrus texts.
집에 가셨어요?
The earliest symbols that resemble hieroglyphs were on pottery dating back to 4000 BCE. This stylized form of signs and drawings was the only writing used from its ancient origins to the end of pharaonic history. Ancient Egyptians referred to hieroglyphs as the writing of the gods. Considered a difficult language, it was intended for pharaohs, nobility,
아무튼 오늘
and
집에 오셔서
priests,
다행입니다.
and meant to be used in ceremonies, within tombs, and for government records. Since few Egyptians were able to read the ancient hieroglyphs, the mythological aura around the language was persistent, even in their own culture.
전화래요?
The structure of
누가요?
hieroglyphs offers insight into Egyptian culture,
지금 자정
not just in
넘었잖아요.
what the translations say, but in the structure of the symbols themselves. They were found on tomb walls, on sarcophagi, on statues, and on pottery, and were meticulously recorded in countless ancient papyri.
그럼 또 하셔야 되는 거예요?
In many temples, priests
추추가.
would perform rituals and daily offerings. These were accompanied
저
by
한참 남았으니까 빨리
hieroglyphs
하시죠.
used as spells. In tomb paintings, the hieroglyphs are represented with formulas to recite. These spoken words were meant to be spells which would allow the deceased to benefit from the offerings for all eternity. Spells and offerings were also written for the living, to enhance medicines
안 하실
and
거예요?
cure illnesses. The most famous of ancient Egyptian documents is the Book of the Dead. Written in hieroglyphs and hieratic texts, it depicts important spells and rituals.
야, 저게
These
글자라는 게
spells were
믿기지가 않다.
intended to ensure a smooth transition from life to death and allow the deceased to
아,
safely
내일 하실 거예요?
navigate the
다행이네.
perils of the
빨리
afterlife.
주무십시오. 전 한참 남았습니다, 아직.
Even after it was deciphered, the reading of hieroglyphs remained difficult at times due to the many directions in which they can be read. Depending on the orientation of the signs, hieroglyphs can be read left to right, right to left, horizontally or vertically, though never bottom to top.
미친놈들이 그런 글자를 왜 만들었대? 그래도 자유 좀
A
어쩌겠습니까?
clue on which way to read is to first notice which direction the figurative signs are facing. If a pictogram is looking to the right, then the reader is meant to start from the right and read towards the figure. Column text on a papyrus begins from the right, then goes top to bottom for each column. Text written on tomb walls resembles the structure of a page from a comic book. The text can be placed in front, behind, or above the character, and its symbols look in the same direction as the character. Another clue is that the name of a god or hieroglyphs meaning gods or kings are always written before the descriptive text.
람세스 뭐 이런 거는 가장 먼저 온다는 거네요, 항상.
Compared to alphabetical languages, Egyptian hieroglyphs have more symbols. Confronted with the absence of vowels, the Egyptians invented a category of signs. When placed at the end of words, these signs help inform its meaning. For instance, a drawing of a lion will refer to a lion and also relate to the abstract concept of a lion as something dangerous or powerful.
그걸 씨발 어떻게 구별해요? 관념 철학자 하는 새끼들도 아니고 관념 철학하는 새끼들도 아니고 이게 뭐야 이게?
Middle Egyptian hieroglyphs contained a little more than 700 signs. By the end of the
그리스 로마 시대
Greco-Roman period,
말기에는
there
1만
were
개.
10,000 signs. Egyptologist Sir Alan Gardner created a list classifying common hieroglyphic signs and their
기억은 하나?
variants.
기억은 해.
Ancient Egyptian languages
로제타 석이
have
없어서
many
힘들었겠죠.
similarities with Asian and African languages. They have evolved in similar ways to the various forms of written Egyptian. These languages belong to the Hamito-Semitic group. There were 5 clear evolutions in the Egyptian language, each with their own distinctive structure. These languages are known as Old Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, Late Egyptian, Demotic, and Coptic. Coptic is the only living language that allows linguists to define the vowel structure and to distinguish different dialects.
저걸 다 기억하고 쓸 수 있으니까 그냥 식자 이상이네요. 식자 이상.
While hieroglyphs and hieratic script give us an idea as to how the ancient Egyptian language was structured and written, the way it was spoken is still up for debate.
이건 아랍어 같다.
The team opted for English as the spoken language, with the characters using ancient Egyptian and Greek words and accents. The language that is spoken in the background by the crowds is largely based on Sir Alan Gardner's Egyptian grammar. To help resurrect a dead language, we consulted Egyptologists and dialogue coaches to establish our target sound and cast actors with Arabic, Hebraic, and African backgrounds to bring the game to life. After Alexander the Great's
로제타
arrival
성
in
나오네요.
Egypt and the establishment of his reign, Greek became the language used by the governing bodies. The inability to read hieroglyphs caused resentment among the Greek population. It's from this tension that the Rosetta Stone was created. The spread of Christianity ended pharaonic culture and resulted in the destruction of its pagan monuments. This also marked the end of hieroglyphic writing and understanding.
십새끼들. 그리스도교 새끼들은 그 이런 거 파괴하거나 그런 거에는 반드시 등장하는 놈들이군요. 참. 얘는 장 프랑스와 샹폴리옹이라는 사람인 것 같습니다. 이번 아마 로제타석 관련한 이야기겠죠. 아무리 생각해도 족같네. 그냥 좀 남겨두면 안 되나? 그냥 남겨두고 옛날엔 저렇게 믿었다. 미개한 새끼들 그렇게만 해도 남겨두기만 하면 안 될까?
Welcome to
그게 그렇게 힘들까요?
Between the 5th century CE and the Renaissance,
꼭 그렇게
knowledge of
부수고 불태우고
hieroglyphs
그래야
was
되나?
entirely lost. Many enthusiasts tackled the challenge of deciphering the language with little success.
전 알아보네요.
Some groundwork was made with various researchers identifying names and some grammatical structure, and confirming that cartouches were markers for royal names. They were still missing a critical piece of information that would eventually be revealed thanks to the discovery of the Rosetta Stone.
그런 것만 생각하면 화가 나요.
The Rosetta Stone was found in 1799 by Bouchard, a soldier in Napoleon's army. The stela dates from 196 BCE,
아 그냥 두면
written in ancient Egyptian
두면
and
될 걸.
Greek
그걸
with
뭐하러
three
부수냐
scripts: hieroglyphics,
콜로세움
demonic,
예를
and
들면
Greek
옛날
alphabet.
건축물들을 뜯어서
Following the defeat of
예를 들면
Napoleon
속재를
Bonaparte
재활용하겠다
in
뭐 그런
1801,
거는
the English took possession
실용적으로
of the
이해라도
stone.
하겠는데
It
근데
has been at the British
무작정 부수고
Museum
태우고
since
그거는 대체
1802
뭘까요?
and
싫어서
remains the
그냥
most visited object of the museum to date.
새끼들 지들이 새로 만들 것도 아니면서 1801년 나폴레옹 보나파르트가 패배한 후 영국이 로제타석을 가져왔고 십새끼들 1802년 이후부터 대형 박물관이 비석을 소장하고 있습니다. 저 새끼들도 보면 안 끼는 데 없어. 얼마나
The first
그렇습니까?
translation was of the Greek section only in 1803. It detailed a decree of Pharaoh Ptolemy V,
요 사람이 짱
reminding the
프랑스와
citizens that their
샹폴리옹이네요.
pharaoh had led Egypt to prosperity. It was fully translated 20 years after by Jean-François
안녕하세요.
Champollion, who was working with a facsimile. Through his studies of the stone, Champollion was able to make a critical observation that would unlock the whole mystery. That hieroglyphics were not only ideograms, but also phonograms.
표의 문자와 표음 문자가 혼재된
Hieroglyphs
거다.
consist of phonetic glyphs, single characters, and logograms. Essentially, they are a combination of phonetics, alphabet, and full words, which in total form a language. While studying the stone, Champollion realized that there was a difference in the number of hieroglyphic characters in relation to the number of Greek characters for the same word. This led him to believe that hieroglyphs must have phonetic characteristics. This was the first step to unlocking the Rosetta Stone's secrets.
중국어도 그렇게는 안 씁니다. 중국어도 한문도 씨발 표이면 표이고 표음이면 표음이지 표음하고 표의를 섞어 쓰진 않습니다. 튕긴다고요? 지금 잘 되는데?
To prove this theory, Champollion began identifying Egyptian rulers' names and then compared their phonetic pronunciation to the Greek version. For example, Cheops had been the Greek name given by ancient chroniclers to the owner of the Great
잠시만요.
Pyramid, Khufu.
지금은 된다고요? 아 그럼
The
됐어요.
next
그러면
step for Champollion
가끔 그럴 때가
was to
있어요.
confirm that his approach was
지금 송출은
verifiable
정상입니다.
by using the Philae obelisk as an additional reference. Engraved in the obelisk are two inscriptions in Egyptian hieroglyphs and Greek. Once he confirmed the names of Ptolemy and Cleopatra within these texts and confirmed the same phonetic patterns as on the Rosetta Stone, Champollion knew he was on the right track. Champollion had already mastered several ancient languages when he took on deciphering the Rosetta Stone. He used his knowledge of Coptic to identify the solar disk hieroglyph on the obelisk as the phonetic translation of Ra. Further translation only strengthened his conclusion. Egyptian hieroglyphs encompass the alphabet in both phonetics and determinative ways, which means that the symbol represents the word itself.
로제타석이 연구의 시발점이 됐고 그 로제타석 이후에는 다른 오벨리스크 같은 것들을 통해서 대조해서 로제타석을 통해서 자기가 이걸 해독해낸 연구가 맞는지 맞지 않는지 타당하다는 걸 타당한지 타당하지 않은지를 검증했고 그리고 그걸 통해서 다시 또 새로운 말을 검증해 나가는 거죠. 글쓰기 첫걸음에서 늘 얘기하는 게 이런 건데 참 그걸 지켜서 쓰기가 힘들지 그를. 올바른 연구 방향은 곧 올바른 글 쓰는 방향입니다. 제 배인 키레네입니다. 키레네.
Welcome to Cyrene. Cyrenaica stretches across the coast of northwest
야
Africa.
이게 기원전
It was known
240년에
as Pentapolis in
지도랍니다.
antiquity,
기원전
a
240년.
reference to the five main cities that formed the Greek colonies.
흑해도 보이고
Built on a lush plateau of the Green
저기
Mountains,
멀리
in
그
what is present-day Libya, a colony of Greek
영국
settlers
시발놈들도
formed the
보이고
city
아 저땐
of Cyrene
켈트인이었겠구나.
in
저땐
630
시발놈이
BCE.
아니었겠네요.
Cyrene's population quickly grew, spreading out across the terraces of the
윤곽이
plateau,
대체로 다
making
알아볼
it the
수
first and
있게
largest
그렸네
of the five
윤곽을.
colonies.
저보다 잘 그린 것 같아요. 제가 그리는 것보다. 클레오파트라에 가능할걸요? 키레네이카는 북서아프리카 해안을 따라 펼쳐진 지역입니다. 먼 옛날에는 그리스의 식민지였던 5개 도시를 묶어서 지칭하는 펜타폴리스라고 불렸습니다. 맞아.
The city of Cyrene was founded by Batos Aristotle, guided by the Oracle of Delphi. Overcrowded and suffering from drought, Batos's home island of Thera could not sustain its citizens. Batos consulted the oracle, who told them to journey to the North African coast in search of arable land. A series of kings reigned over the city in the first 2 centuries. However, rebellion eventually ended the monarchy, and henceforth the city was governed by the aristocracy.
벽 타는 거 한번 보여드릴까요? 오 여왕님 벽 타신다. 또 튕긴다고요? 잠깐만 있어봐요. 잠깐만요. 방송을 껐다 켰습니다.
The key features of Cyrene were temples dedicated to gods, Apollo, Demeter, and Zeus, alongside Ptolemaic gods
갑자기
such as
카이사르?
Isis and
카이사르는 뭔데?
Serapis. A large agora defined the city's center, and on the western edge, the famed Acropolis was built. A fortification wall was added around the harbor at the end of the
지금은 잘
2nd
나오죠?
century CE. As the city grew, more buildings were constructed beyond the walls.
네, 그럼 됐습니다. 아, 오프라인
Under
상태라고
Roman
썸네일이었겠다.
influence, Cyrene became an economic powerhouse, rising in status throughout the Mediterranean. Cyrene's school of medicine rivaled all others except for that of the Greek city Kos. Some of the great minds in ancient math, astronomy, and geography were born or established in the various schools of the city, which included an institute of philosophy founded by Aristippus, a pupil of Socrates. From 115 to 117 CE, there was a revolt in the Jewish quarter that
서기
greatly damaged the
115년에서
city of Cyrene.
117년이면은 대략 오현재
Over
시대쯤
time,
됐을
a
텐가?
succession of battles, poor management of its silphium crop, and earthquakes
트라이노스 저도
eventually
20인데.
took their toll on the city. It was completely abandoned in
서기
365 CE.
365년이면은 서기 365년이면 언제입니까? 로마가 망해가고 있을 때쯤이네요. 동서로마 분리 직전쯤이네. 그때까지는 아무튼 큰 도시로서 살아남았다는 거겠죠.
The nearby port of Apollonia was an ideal location, with its natural cove, sheltered by 2 islands and rocky inlets. Along with a lighthouse, the port was later equipped with quays and warehouses to accommodate the increased shipping traffic.
숙면된 시청자. 아이고 여왕님 벽 타신다.
With its success as a commercial trading port, Apollonia surpassed Cyrene to eventually become the capital of the Pentapolis. A number of earthquakes gradually shifted the city, causing many of its original structures to sink. Some of its ruins can still be seen underwater.
아무튼 지금은 그러면 바다 밑으로 가라앉았나 보다 대부분. 네 맞아요 맞아요. 자 이번에는 아고라와 온천 목욕탕. 이번 키레네 마찬가지로 또 키레네네요. 키레네 공공장소라는데. 헤로도토스는 이집트 남성은 여성이 돈을 벌어오는 동안 빈둥거렸으며 여성은 서서 남성은 앉아서 소변을 봤다고 믿었습니다. 페미니스트 같네. 이거 아닙니다. 아 요겁니다.
Welcome to the Agora and Thermal Baths.
헤로도토스 구라쟁이.
Cyrene's Agora was the public marketplace and political hub of the city. Its central courtyard was open to the sky, while market stalls and shops ran along the sides, some neatly tucked away under long-roofed colonnades. As in other Greek cities,
얘들은
the
양놈들은
Agora
창의성이
included a
부족해서
central hearth, known
비슷한
as a
이름을 많이
Prytaneum.
붙이잖아요.
This place served as Cyrene's
도시들에.
official embassy where guests were welcomed to the city. An unnamed statue representing naval victories was the centerpiece of the Agora.
지금도
The
남아있구나.
statue's female figure likely represents Nike, the goddess of victory. It was likely very similar to the victory of Samothrace, which currently resides in the Louvre Museum and served as a reference for the team.
네 들어가요.
The Cyrene Agora also displayed many temples and monuments celebrating its founding king, Batos, and the city gods. There were two
네.
altars associated with the Temple of Apollo, and a marble statue base dedicated to the goddess Libya.
Ακούεις σήμαντε δούνε, απήντησον.
The civic buildings included a law court complete with an archive library that would have housed legal documents and other papers essential to the city's governance. Traces of fire damage to the building's remains indicate that it was possibly destroyed during the rebellion of the Jewish community in 115 CE.
Αφού γκράσουμε καλώς. Εν θα δεημεί.
Public baths were common in Roman and Greek cities, and Cyrene held true to this tradition.
하드리안의 목욕탕이라고? 하드리안
Two thermal
누사이냐?
baths from different eras were discovered among the ruins. An inscription at the entrance of one of the
하드리아누스
baths
때
is presumed to
로마
be attributed to the
제국
owner. It
전토의
dates the building to
공공사업들을
the
많이
Hellenistic
벌였습니다.
period.
사대강 같은 거죠. 물론 사대강처럼 병신짓은 아니었습니다.
Εσού ελάβνην ούκη γνωσκόμην γε.
Mosaics were originally created for practical reasons, the need to waterproof floors. Imported by Greeks in Egypt and Cyrenaica, the designs represented either scenes from daily life,
방수
marine
목적이었구나
fauna, or
모자이크가.
mythological figures. In addition to
하드리아누스
traditional
때요?
Greek motifs,
내용은
they
어떤데요?
also integrated concepts specific to Egyptian culture, such as the Nelumbo. The best examples of
목욕탕 같은
mosaics recovered to date, however, come from Alexandria.
건설 노동자 이야기인가요?
The Cyrene baths were fitted into an underground tomb dated somewhere between the 8th and 6th century BCE. Bath
설마
seats
저걸
were
보고
carved
성욕을
directly
느끼는
in
병신은
the
없겠지.
rock, allowing for more comfortable ablutions.
일본 기술 최고요.
As with many of the public buildings, the thermal
하드리아누스
baths were
하드리아누스 때
elaborately
배경인데 왜
decorated.
일본 기술 최고인데?
Statues such as Aphrodite and Eros the archer were discovered within. The Frigidarium, a pool of cold water, was the first room visitors entered. It was followed by the Tepidarium, or tepid water area, and then the hot water room called the Caldarium. Water for the thermal baths was sourced from a natural spring. Burning stones were deposited into the water to create steam as required. The flowing water of the spring ended in a cistern and fountain referred to as the Aqua Augusta.
로마 목욕탕
Later Roman
건설업자가
baths were built
타임슬립으로
under
일본으로 와서
Emperor Trajan and then
세상에.
restored under Hadrian. After the earthquake
볼만해요.
of 365 CE, they were replaced by baths of Byzantine design, with stones from the old thermal baths used in the reconstruction. The team relied on documentation describing the baths built under Trajan in order to create the location available in the game.
트라이아누스 황제 때 최초로 만들어졌고 기렌에 있는 거죠. 그리고 하드리아누스 황제 때 복원됐고, 사실 트라이아누스 다음에 하드리아누스입니다. 그리고 365년의 지진 때 아까 키레네가 멸망했다는 곳 때 비잔틴 디자인으로 교체됐고 동로마 스타일로 교체됐고 그랬다고 하네요. 코미디라고. 원숭이들은 우리 짱짱 그런 거 되게 좋아해. 자, 이번엔 키레네 제우스 신전입니다. 키레네 엄청 많이 나오네요. 이집트 보고인데 왜 키레네가 이렇게 많이 나올까? 키레네가 그렇게 큰 도시였나?
Welcome to the Temple of Zeus in Cyrene. Facing east towards the rising sun stands the temple dedicated to the cult of Zeus. It was built sometime in the 5th century BCE. 70 meters long with 46 Doric-style columns, the imposing
파르테논
structure was the
신전이나
largest Greek
올림피아의
temple
제우스
erected in
신전보다
Africa.
조금 더 컸답니다.
It was only
진짜
slightly
컸나
larger
보네요.
than the Parthenon and the Temple of Zeus in Olympia.
진짜 컸나 보다.
Ανάθημα μου για το...
The exterior was designed with the decorative elements common to Doric architecture. The dimensions of the columns were different, giving visitors an impression of uniqueness when viewing each facade.
Ωφελημωτά της πράξεως εκεί.
After the temple was destroyed during the Jewish rebellion, Emperor Hadrian had it reconstructed. He chose not to rebuild the outer portico, but did restore the new Corinthian columns in marble. The temple was later completed under Marcus Aurelius.
마르쿠스
In the time of
아우렐리우스는
Augustus, a
하드리아누스의
faithful but
다다음
smaller
황제입니다.
imitation of the Olympian Zeus was used to be worshipped. Hadrian then
하드리아누스,
installed a new
안토니누스,
12-meter high
그다음에
statue matching the Zeus
마르쿠스
in Olympia.
아우렐리우스 이렇게 이어지죠.
It was made of chiseled marble, with the head, arms, and feet carved in the round.
글래디에이터에 나오는 그 늙은 아저씨가 바로 마르쿠스 아우렐리우스입니다.
Archaeologists confirm that there was a monumental statue of Zeus in this temple, though experts remain divided on whether it was one of Zeus or one more specific to the cult of Zeus Ammon.
제우스 아문은
The
누구죠?
team elected to place a statue of Zeus Ammon in this location, knowing that Cyrene was central to the spread
제우스의
of this
다른
cult
이름인가?
in the Greek
이집트화된
Mediterranean
제우스인가?
area.
자, 키레네의 제우스 신전. 또 키레네입니다. 키레네의 중요 건축물.
Welcome to Important Monuments of Cyrene. The sanctuary of Apollo sits on a prominent edge of the plateau of Cyrene, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. It could be accessed either by the road from Apollonia, via the necropolis, or by the Sacred Way, coming from the agora of the city. The abundance of temples and statues throughout the city reflect the various Greco-Roman and Egyptian cult influences over the centuries.
대충
Temples
터
dedicated to
같은 건 남아
Apollo,
있지 않을까요?
Cyrene, and Zeus
터나
stood
아니면
alongside
폐허 같은 건
those
남아 있지
of
않을까?
Ptolemaic gods, such as Serapis and Isis. Numerous fountains were decorated to represent other gods, including the city's namesake, Cyrene. A vestibule known as a propylaeum marked its entrance and highlighted the fountain of Apollo.
아,
God of the
폭격
sun
때문에.
and of protection, Apollo was an important deity to both Greeks and Romans. The sanctuary built in his honor was considered to be
그럴 수
sacred.
있겠네요. 근데 뭐 과거 도시하고 현대 도시하고
The
위치 차이가 좀
imposing
있을
temple
테니까
was built
괜찮지
on a
않을까 싶네요.
natural cornice,
괜찮았으면
stretching
좋겠다.
more than
그리고
200 meters in length
좀
and roughly
부수지 말고
50
좀
meters in width, and was surrounded by a vast Doric colonnade. Sections uncovered by archaeologists indicate restorations to the columns were made between 115 and 116 CE.
지금도 남아 있긴 합니다. 일단 요거는 2007년도 사진이랍니다.
The altar was located in front of the temple. Both are estimated to be the same age, though restored at different times. Many bulls were sacrificed each year at the altar in honor of Apollo. The imprint in the stone of the ring used to strap the animals down is visible to this day. Carved during the Roman era, the Apollo Cytharide was discovered near the temple. It is considered an important archaeological find. The statue of Apollo was in pieces when it was uncovered. Remarkably, most fragments were found, and the restored statue is
원본이 좀
currently at the
적나라한데
British Museum. The team
설마 저거에 성욕을
extrapolated the
느끼는
statue's
병신은
final
없겠죠?
look based on the current partial reconstruction
여성부 직원들은
and placed it inside the temple to reflect
여성부
the
육국
patron
공무원 정도
deity
되면
of the
느낄 수도
area.
있겠다. 근데 게임에서는 적절히 가렸네요. 원본은 가리지 않았어. 여성부 육국 공무원 정도 되면 저 정도에 느끼지 않을까 싶어요. 그래야 그 정도로 이제 가이드라인 만들고 하죠.
The amphitheater of Cyrene is located on what is known as the Terrace of Myrtosa, next to the sanctuary of Apollo.
삼국 공무원쯤 되면 이런
It
거에도
was built
성욕을
on
느끼지
top
않을까?
of the old theater in the 2nd century. Originally used as a stage, the theater became an amphitheater once the taste for Roman gladiatorial entertainment reached the city.
Ευχάριστος η μητά σου. Ευλογείται σε Θεή.
Entrances were placed at both ends of the amphitheater. A
YWCA는
wall
YMCA의
replaced the
여자
first two
버전입니까?
rows of bleachers as protection from the array of wild animals in the ring. The tunnel used for the parade of beasts and gladiators circled the arena, unlike the Roman Colosseum's tunnel, which was beneath the amphitheater.
생각이
The
아이스크림이요.
basement and corridors accommodated both the gladiators and the animals, and included lifts that raised the traps into the arena's center.
이게 원형 경기장이구나.
Since the original theater was close to the cliffside, the expansion didn't allow for a perfect circle. Instead, junctions of the semicircle formed the arena into an oval shape. This elliptical formation still ensured an excellent view from all angles.
안녕하세요.
The team decided to create a perfectly round theater for technical reasons and used the structure of the Roman theater as their reference.
개신교 쪽이죠. 개신교 쪽은 원래 그래요. 옛날엔 카톨릭이 꼴통이었는데 요즘은 신교 쪽이 꼴통이죠. 자, 키렌의 중요한 건축물. 이번에는 키렌의 아크로폴리스입니다. 아크로폴리스. 키렌에 존나 많네요.
Welcome to the Acropolis of Cyrene. Located on the western edge of the city, Cyrene's Acropolis was smaller than the one in Athens, though its high vantage point provided protection for the city. At its entrance was a single door, flanked by two towers. An inscription, legible to this day, states that the walls and the citadel were restored in the time of Augustus.
옥타비아누스 때 복원했답니다.
A number of statuettes have been
저는
excavated
YWCA에
from the
대해서 잘
site,
몰라요.
including one of Berenice, the daughter of Magus, the king of Cyrene, and half-brother of Ptolemy II. At the northeast tower, there is a sanctuary consisting of two small temples with a vestibule, and an altar believed to be that of Serapis and Isis. When the temples were excavated, archaeologists found traces of fire damage. However, there are no indications as to when this fire occurred. In the 20th century, a fortification was built above the ward to defend against an invading army. It covered the ancient remains of nearby Roman houses entirely,
그렇구만.
and archaeologists have yet to fully excavate them.
지금은 요 지역에 이제 요새가 있단 말이죠. 자, 검투사 투기장입니다. 검투사 투기장.
Welcome to the Gladiator Arena. While gladiators would not perform in Cyrene until later in the Roman era, the team decided to include a gladiatorial arena for two reasons. First, they believed it was important to portray this aspect of Roman life. And second, they felt
원래
it would add
키레네에는
interesting
검투장이 없었나
gameplay
보네요.
possibilities.
일부러 추가했나 보네.
Τι γεγονία της αγώνας.
The first gladiators to enter the arena were prisoners of war. It was a spectacle of violent clashes between men and against wild beasts that lasted nearly 1,000 years.
여기요? 잠깐만요.
Eventually,
끝나고 한번 올라올게요.
volunteers
끝나고.
began to enter the ring. For status and money, many of the more skilled combatants increased the quality of the entertainment.
오락의 질이
Thus,
향상됐습니다.
the profession of gladiator came to be. Bound by contract to the master of the gladiators, the fighters were fed, trained, and guarded in barracks. Gladiators were separated into heavy and light armored fighters, each with their own set of specific armor and weapons. Organizers often had two audience-favored factions face each other in combat. The events were highly organized. Fights were held with a background of music and supervised by a referee. Death, either in the course of combat or by decision, was not always the only way out for the loser. Several were released due to their performance and gained great notoriety as celebrities.
이거 또 느낌상 못 올라갈 것 같아요. 못 올라가네. 일부러 지금 여기 이걸 박아놨네요. 네, 저거 있으면 못 올라가거든요. 전부 다 있네. 자, 마지막입니다. 이집트 마지막. 키레네의 주요 수출품. 클레오파트라는 아버지의 영광이다.
Welcome to Major Exports of Cyrene.
키레네 엄청 많이 나오네요.
Cyrene's main source of economic wealth was in the cultivation and export of poppies and silphium. Though the opium oil from the poppies was also an export, little is known about this crop. Information about the cultivation of silphium, however, is more accessible to us.
그때는 마약으로서의 그게 크지 않았다는 거죠. 폐해가.
Silphium, with its yellow flower, was considered a gift from the sun god. Grown solely in this region near the Mediterranean Sea, Silphium extract was exported at high prices and was so crucial to the wealth of Cyrenaica that it was depicted on their coins. Silphium's roots produced a resin used by both the Greeks and Romans in medicines intended to cure cough, fever, indigestion, and many other ailments. It was also used as a contraceptive. In a compilation of culinary recipes from the 4th century BCE, the herb is mentioned in various recipes, including a flamingo dish. High demand, overexploitation, and possibly a shift in climate all contributed to the eventual extinction of Silphium.
멸종했습니다.
The last mention of it dates from the 4th century CE, and to this day, no traces of this plant have been identified.
자, 키렌의 주요 수출품. 여기까지가 이집트였고요. 이집트 다 봤고 피라미드 다 봤고 알렉산드리아 다 봤네요. 일상생활하고 그 다음에 로마가 남아있는데 일상생활을 내일 하고요. 로마는 오늘 합시다. 자, 영상 일단 끊죠.